Morning El Paso.
We saw very strong winds on the east side of this thing. A lot of rain, no real defined center. It's very broad, a very broad circulation.
Flood-weary Texans are bracing for heavy rain and possible flooding as the storm is creeping further inland.
More controversy surrounding a country club sculpture that was taken down. What the city is now offering the artist if she wants the piece back.
And the Doña County Sheriff's Office is investigating allegations of excessive force in Hatch, New Mexico. We'll have the details.
Live, where news comes first. From the Mesilla Valley and Las Cruces to El Paso and the borderland. This is ABC 7's Good Morning El Paso.
A very good morning to El Paso, Las Cruces, and Juarez. I'm Stephanie Valle.
And I'm Floren. Good morning, everyone. Let's talk about the heat coming our way first before we get to the headlines, shall we?
Yes, and Crystal, thankfully at 6:01 this morning, it's not too hot.
Yeah, it's starting off pretty good out there. It's later this afternoon. We're talking the hot conditions, and unfortunately, we can't say it's a dry heat this afternoon because we'll also have some chances of rain in the forecast. Let's start with this morning. We're at 72 in El Paso. Your winds are light. In fact, today winds aren't looking like they'll be a big factor at all in the forecast, just at 6 miles per hour this morning. Over to Las Cruces, we're at 67 degrees, winds at 3 miles per hour, and we do have that relative humidity up to 57%. That's something we'll continue checking in on through your later newscast because we will be tracking how humid it feels outside. It is a clear start to the day, though. It's later this afternoon. We're talking the potential for some clouds picking up around our region. Temperatures the rest of our map, we're at 64 Silver City and 68 TRC, 55 in Ruidoso, and 64 also for Alamogordo. So when we're starting in the 60s and 50s, how high will the temperatures get this afternoon? Hotter than yesterday. We'll look at those coming up in just a few minutes.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Crystal. And now to the headlines. After pounding the Texas coast, Tropical Storm Bill has been downgraded this morning to a tropical depression. Residents of the Gulf Coast are trying to deal with the aftermath today. ABC's Lana Zach has the very latest.
Another day in paradise.
The rainwater was calf high in Seabrook, Texas, after Tropical Storm Bill, now a tropical depression, drenched the area with heavy rains, wind gusts, and high waves. After flash floods during the Memorial Day holiday led to the deaths of approximately 30 people, emergency management officials took extra precautions to mitigate the effects of this storm, closing down streets and warning residents of the danger. While up in the sky, the hurricane hunters of the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron monitored the storm.
We saw very strong winds on the east side of this thing. A lot of rain, no real defined center. It's very broad, a very broad circulation.
That broad circulation putting a large portion of the country at risk of flash floods. Those warnings continuing today. But the hardest hit of all, Texas. Firefighters in Houston were on alert during the storm and rescued one little guy caught in the deluge.
He was out front, just squealing, making all kinds of noise and ruckus. Brought him inside, gave him a bath, gave him another bath.
The firefighters say they've named him Ruckus for all the noise he was making.
He whittled his way into our hearts.
And now this storm is triggering tornado warnings throughout Texas and Oklahoma in areas that still haven't recovered from last month's floods. In Washington, Lana Zach, ABC News.
El Paso City Council approved yet another change order for the overdue San Jacinto Plaza renovation project. The latest modification came yesterday. Council will allocate $110,000 to move electrical service equipment underground. That brings the total cost at this point to just under $5 million. So while the project is overdue, the city maintains that it is still under its $6 million total budget. And the city says it is trying to keep some employers from stealing the wages of their employees. At yesterday's meeting, council voted unanimously to put its first ever wage theft ordinance in place. It'll create a database of employers who have legal judgments against them for wage theft. Being on that list will impact businesses' ability to get contracts with the city. And expected within 60 days are more consequences, with city staff researching what licenses and permits the city could also withhold.
We have new information now on that scrap sculpture, Uplift, that was supposed to be on Country Club Road. Initially, they told the artist, Margarita Cabrera, that they would give the sculpture back if she returned the money the city had paid her, which is around $70,000. But now she says a new attorney firm that the city hired from outside El Paso is offering her $25,000. She says that doesn't even cover the value of her work. She says some of that money is what the city owed her anyway for the sculpture. She has no plans to accept the offer.
this whole effort and investment by the city, by our citizens, by myself, by the community that participated, it has all been wasted.
Without a deal as of now, there is no word on what will happen to the sculpture in the future. New this morning, City Council made a change on how El Paso police are paid when working special events. Officers will also need to be given a heads up if their schedules change. Good morning, El Paso's Denise Olivas is live right now with the details on this story. Good morning.
Good morning. Typically when police officers work events like the El Paso Chihuahuas games out here in downtown El Paso, that pulls them away from their normal work schedules to secure and patrol the rest of the city. So the police department and the Officers Association went before City Council yesterday to ask that officers be given a 14-day notice before they are being pulled from their normal schedules. The Officers Association and the police department came to this agreement after scheduling conflicts increased. Ron Martin, the president of the Officers Association, told council it has become a staffing issue, even after the number of police officers patrolling outside the ballpark was cut in half this season. Now officers will have to be given 14 days notice, and if they are not given that notice, they will be paid in overtime while covering the games.
The amount of time it takes for you to get the permit, 30 days or 90 days advance notice, we should at least know. It's basically a common courtesy to our officers telling them, look, we're changing your day off. We're changing your start time. You need to make arrangements with someone to pick up your kids and do whatever you normally do to handle these events.
It is important to note that officers who work inside the ballpark are paid by the El Paso Chihuahuas, but the officers who control traffic and safety out here on the streets are paid by the city. And also did want to mention that City Rep Lily Limon did mention that this probably should have been taken care of a long time ago, but she was happy to see that all the organizations, meaning the Police Officers Association, the department, and the city, were able to come to an agreement. For now, we're live in downtown El Paso. Denise Olivas, ABC 7.
All right, Denise, thank you for that live update. Allegations of excessive force by police in Hatch. From our New Mexico mobile newsroom, the Hatch Village attorney says the Doña Ana County Sheriff's Office is investigating an incident that happened last Wednesday at the police department. The attorney won't tell us why the alleged victim was in police custody or if it's a man or a woman. We do know the person was released that same night. The ABC 7 New Mexico mobile newsroom crew was told surveillance video is being reviewed. Meantime, an officer was placed on paid administrative leave, which is standard procedure. And an update to a story that we have been following now, 2 former Las Cruces police officers are currently facing aggravated battery charges for what you see here. Richard Garcia and Danny Salcido were caught on tape being a handcuffed man to the point that he ended up in the ICU.
A former corrections officer was just given 1 year in federal prison for distributing drugs inside the Doña Ana County Jail. 27-year-old Francisco Balderrama was caught smuggling a package into the jail. Turns out inside was heroin, methamphetamine, and cocaine. Let's take a live look at traffic right now. This is I-10 and landfill you're looking at right now. The time 6:08 and things are moving along just fine this morning.
And still to come, what a move for the El Paso Chihuahuas manager Pat Murphy could mean for the team's next chapter.
Also a history-making Game 6 last night in the NBA Finals. We have the highlights for you and of course the celebration highlights coming up.
And we also have the highlights, if you will, for our forecast for clouds standing by.
Well, we just have slight chances of rain, but how much could that mean we pick up here in the borderland? We're going to look at your future track rainfall model after the break.
Thanks, Crystal. This is ABC 7, where news comes first.